My name is Daryl Kwal. Thanks for joining us. In our first story tonight, the Ghana Private Road Transport Union has dismissed claims by a section of the public of an increase in lorry fares by 15%. Now, there were some speculations to that effect earlier, but some commercial drivers under the GPRTU that Joy Business spoke with say they are rather waiting for the outcome of a meeting between the executives and government by Monday before they react.
Because we
haven't started increasing the fares at the station because we want to see what the government will say first about the fuel increases. During the previous government, when the fuel prices increased, we also increased accordingly, but we haven't increased the fares. Even after petrol prices increased, we haven't increased our fares, and it's destroying our business. We will be increasing our prices soon because the drivers at different places are increasing. We are waiting on the government. If they don't tell us anything from Monday, we will increase the prices.
Transport fares
we haven't increased our fares. In fact, it's really worrying our business here. So we are begging the government to intervene. The fuel prices have increased, but we haven't increased our prices. So if government can step in, it will really help us. Right now, we are running our businesses at a loss. Now, many people are losing interest in being drivers.
Interest being free,
Yes, we've heard, but since we haven't heard from the regional executives, we can't also increase our fares. At first, fuel was sold at 15 Ghana cedis, but now it's 21 Ghana cedis. But still, we haven't increased our fares. It makes it difficult for us to operate. We hope government will step in and solve the situation.
We want to wait for the government to make a statement about this before deciding on whether to increase fares or not. As a taxi driver, now that the fuel prices have increased, I also start increasing my fares from today.
And I guess we have to wait till Monday to know what is really going to happen. Well, moving on, government is revamping the Venture Fund Management Trust with a capital injection of about $50 million to support small-scale industries and distressed businesses to bounce back into operations. In the same vein, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta says the 2017 budget has allocated extra 100 million cedis to support agricultural production and agribusiness. According to him, these are part of measures by government to transform the economy that's away from tax collection to real production. He was addressing a section of the business community to explain critical portions of the budget statement and its implications on businesses.
Growth in the industrial and manufacturing sector has significantly declined over time, contributing to an unprecedented level of unemployment. This situation could be attributed to a variety of factors, including high cost of capital, limited access to medium to long-term financing, cost of electricity, unreliable power, land, etc., etc. So against this background, that a national industrial revitalization program of a stimulus package for industry is being established to provide both technical and financial support. We are reactivating the Venture Fund Management Trust because in there is then the capacity to give both debt and equity to distressed companies which are capable of doing much more than they are doing. So there will be $50 million or 200 million Ghana cedis in there. In addition to that, in cooperation with the Bank of Ghana, it's 100 million Ghana cedis going to go through sort of to further support agriculture, and another 100 million Ghana cedis to support agribusiness. So really, in addition to the $1 million per constituency, which is $275 million, is also sort of a push for the banking sector to be able to respond to the needs of industry.
In other business news tonight, CEO of Dalex Finance, Ken Thompson, has urged government to make agriculture a priority to enhance its job creation agenda. He's also advocating a devaluation of the cedi. This, he says, will fix the current broken economy. Ken Thompson stated this in an interview with Inshira Ado on the Business Leadership Program, the Executive Lounge.
The two things that concern me most about Ghana now is the unemployment and is the value of the cedi in people's pockets. Because you can't build a nation where the person whose salary cannot pay his transport, cannot rent, cannot pay medical bills, extra. You don't have a life. We've become respectable poor. The two things that I would do, and I've said this so many times, I would start to invest in agriculture. Because if you invest in agriculture all along the value chain, you're going to create a lot of jobs. Alongside giving that support for agriculture, I will start to devalue the cedi. Because cedi is overvalued. I mean, I've said this so many times. You know, in 2013, I talked about the cedi. 2014, 15, 16, 2014, I talked about cedi. I said overvaluation. I said let's do agriculture. In 2015, I said we're heading for a crash. In 2016, I said the economy was broken. You can't start to talk certain things to a man who's hungry. That's fine. So the two things that concern me, I'll start to invest in agriculture to create jobs and increase the value of the cedi in people's pockets. That's the first thing I'll do. And as part of my measures to increase investment in agriculture and increase food production, I'll start to devalue the cedi to make farming competitive. Once I've solved that problem, and that will solve Ghana's unemployment problem, solve our exchange rate problems. Once I've solved that problem, I'll start to do other things. But you can't start to preach to people who are hungry. And we're hungry. Our children are home with nothing to do, and there are no prospects. So you can't start to talk big English. Create jobs. Create jobs, increase the value of the cedis in people's pockets.
And you certainly don't want to miss the Executive Lounge tomorrow. That's on the same channel at 5 p.m. hosting CEO of Dalex Finance, Ken Thompson. Now let's turn to some energy issues because Senior Minister Yao Safumafo has justified government's decision to restructure the operations of the Volta River Authority, VRA. Government has initiated steps to limit its control in operations of the authority to the hydro division and cede management of the thermal division to the private sector. Now, this means government will now focus solely on the management of the Akosombo Hydro Dam and Bui Hydropower, explaining government policy measures for the year 2017 at a post-budget forum organized by accounting firm KPMG. Mr. Osafumafo said that this should make VRA more efficient in its operations.
Banks are literally paralyzed because they can't lend because of bad loans, bad debt. Most of them not through the faults of the banks, through the government, because we have forced them to lend to parastatals like VRA, this, that. And we all sit watching. Crude oil, so give them the LC, then they organize it for them. The banks are no more able to even service those loans. And therefore, they cannot service the private sector. So it is important at the same time in this budget to make sure that the banks are able to lend. Otherwise, we cannot do the growth we are talking about. We cannot go from the 3.6 to 6.3. So we think about, look, the sacred cow along the line may have to be looked at. VRA, you are a hydro expert. You've done an excellent job in the past. Combining thermal with VRA doesn't involve the same technology. It's time we call a spade a spade. Let's separate the two. Thermal units we put together, take steps to privatize them. We are going to do exactly that. Hydro, let's add The other one, what do you call it? The one in the north, not north, Burahafu. Bui, let's add Bui to Akosombo, both hydro, Akosombo handle it. So we begin to rationalize some of these things. And I think for a country, to me, this budget is all-purpose vehicle budget.
Meanwhile, the senior minister, Yaosafo Mafo, he is setting the falling trend of the city's depreciation, or the falling trend of the city against the major trading currencies will cease before the end of March. Now, according to him, the current challenge of the local currency is attributable to the poor economy which the NDC government left behind. Mr. Mafo says policy initiatives outlined in the budget statement delivered by the finance minister, Ken Oforiatta, will help stabilize the currency by the end of the month after the markets begin to respond. He was speaking with Joseph Opoku-Gakpo.
This budget is the best that has happened to Ghana for many years. And it is not because I belong to the government, but because the facts are there. The government inherited a deficit of 10.3% of GDP. You know what that means? And a growth of 3.6%. Don't forget that when Kufuor was living, the growth was 9.2%. Now growth has declined to 3.6% with oil. At Kufuor's time, there was no oil. So if the economy grew by about 9% without oil, and the economy is growing at 3.6%, then there's a problem with oil. And the budget did about 3 things in a row, and I want you to listen very carefully. Now, the budget recognized that we have a very serious problem with unemployment, and therefore, you cannot get a budget that does not grow the economy. So the budget has grown the economy from 3.6 to 6.3. He has turned the figures down from 3.6 to 6.3. So this economy is this budget is expansionist. It's expanding. There's growth.
You said you're going to scrap. They said you're going to scrap the energy sector levy, which they say did not happen in the budget.
They didn't read the budget thoroughly. Every political party has a 4-year cycle. We have done 1-year budget out of 4. So if I make 10 pledges, and in one budget I fulfill 6, and you say I'm running away from pledges, then either you don't understand or I don't understand. But I think you don't. We are fighting an election that is based on a 4-year cycle. And I made promises in a manifesto, which was used to fight the election. And that manifesto was my manifesto for the next 4 years.
So we can expect that going forward, then the energy sector levy will still be scrapped.
We would tackle other problems. If anybody thinks that all the pledges of government will be fulfilled in 1 year, then you are being Ethiopian to stabilize. It has to stabilize. You are not likely the city to appreciate against the dollar. No, that will be Ethiopian. The city will stabilize. So if we are at 4.4, it will begin to stabilize around that number, and that will be all right. Because we have at the end of our program a 3.6 months reserves. That's what the budget has projected. The city to stabilize.
I'm sure.
Moving on now, and the new Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Emmanuel Kofinti, says the authority will be adopting more business-friendly strategies in tax collection, following government's decision to be hard on compliance and the decision to abolish taxes. There are fears the revenue agency will be tough on firms when it comes to tax payments. But Mr. Nti tells Joy Business the situation going forward will be different.
We are going to treat the taxpayer as a customer. A customer well treated interact positively with the system, so that we are trying to know our customer. I mean, the banks have it. Know your customer, KYC. I don't think we know our customers well enough. Going forward, we would want to know our customers even more. And as we know them more, we know their businesses, the things that they do, it helps us to interact. And when the customer knows that you are there for him, the customer will give a positive reaction to the thing that you do with him. And so going forward, we will be more interactive with the customers.
What other different things are you also going to do to meet the 44 billion, if that there's minus the grants, there's the tax revenue bit, so that you can meet it maybe even before the year ends?
You know the example the minister gave, where there was something 33,000, and by interaction and 1,000 going somewhere, at the end of the day, they got it for 8,000. We would want to do mechanisms that would ensure that the proper rates are collected for the system. Okay. When you take the self-employed, the informal sector, they're making like just about 4% of the direct tax. Look at the numbers in that area. We would want a situation where we beef up the interaction and then the collection, the self-employed. Possibly move it to like 10%. And we are going to be focused on performance at the local levels. Okay, so that at the end of the day, when you look at it, the LTO picks about 66% of the bill, of the revenues. It means that the rest in totality contribute about 34%. That shouldn't be the case. We want a situation where we will be able to tell the linkage between the staff, expenditure on the staff at the local level, and the kind of revenue is coming at the local level. And when that is being done at the local level, the staff know that he's being an expense on the system. Nobody needs telling them they have to back up. These are some of the ways we would use to try and beef up revenue.
Well, in a related development, another tax expert has downplayed any negative impact of the tax cuts on government's revenue. Vish Ashiago is a senior country partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Cuts in taxes means potentially less revenue to government, but it's a fine balance, because if those tax cuts are going to encourage more business activity, then what you have is increased volumes. So the rate may be lower, or in some cases may not be there, but because there's more activity and more throughput and more volume, you should in principle be able to make overall more. So as the minister said when he spoke, the other thing the government is looking to do is to strengthen compliance. So he gave the example of the ports. So if you take all of those into consideration, perhaps if we can indeed strengthen compliance and therefore get more from there, what we get may actually end up compensating for those taxes that are being taken away. But then it has the added benefit of encouraging private business and private sector to take the lead in the economy.
Are you convinced by those measures that they are outlining to make up for these cuts?
Well, we believe it will be difficult. We don't believe by any means, or we're not under any illusion that it's going to be an easy thing to accomplish. And I think the government itself appreciates that, because again, if you heard the minister and the kind of expectation that he and his team have of the Ghana Revenue Authority in terms of their monitoring, their compliance, etc., I think there's a recognition that it will not be easy. But we do have to do something. And it's better to have bold targets and bold ambitions, because then at least you begin to make progress.
We want to take you now to Kumasi, where the Dean of the College of Engineering at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, KNUST, is calling for support for local industrial production to advance government's economic growth agenda. He spoke with Love Business at this year's edition of the annual career fair organized by the College of Engineering at the KNUST.
According to Professor Mark Eduma-Samoa, the effective adoption of local technology in manufacturing should reduce the influx of cheap imported products to the benefit of the economy. Government has outlined a number of initiatives in the 2017 budget under the National Industrial Revitalization Program aimed at reversing the manufacturing sector's downward growth in the last 5 years. Professor Mark Eduma-Samoa says home-based industrial engineering is critical.
One of the things that I believe is an affront to our manufacturing is the fact that there is too much importation of goods going on. And if we are able to encourage the manufacturing sector, probably that is a policy of the government. The government may have to take off some taxes, etc., to help them bring down the cost of production. But the moment we are able to take it at a national level, where we have a lot of factories coming up, then it means that we are also going to boost employment. Last year, we were able to get employment for about 50 of our students. And this employment process, usually, they are employed into the national service.
Private sector players have blamed the high unemployment levels on the challenging business environment, which they say has made it impossible for them to expand and employ more hands.
You're still watching Business Live. Let's turn to our interview of the day. And government will have some challenges in securing the required funds to sustain its free senior high school policy. That's the warning coming from the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, ISA. The institute gave the warning at a program to review policies outlined in the 2017 budget. Now here's Dr. Charles Aka, a fellow of ISA and an economist.
It's a good idea. To be honest, free SHS, free university education, free primary education, they're all good if we can afford it. I think the concern that we are raising is that we don't have a full picture of how much it's going to cost comprehensively going forward from 2017 going. And we don't have a full understanding whether we are prepared, because this is going to lead to enrollment, high increase in enrollment. So whether we have the enough facilities and teachers and stuff. But also we are also concerned that given that this is the first budget of the government and they have taken over an economy that is wobbling, economy that has been in a recession for about 4 or 5 years, growth has fallen to 3.6%, and the government feels that they need to make good all the promises they've made, and they have done a lot already, given a lot of incentives, so they're losing a lot of money already from the incentives. Could it have been possible to delay the start of that policy, even though it's a good thing, to maybe next year or next 2 years? If it's possible, why not? But if they think that they have the resource envelope to be able to do that this year, we support it. It remains to be seen whether the resource envelope is going to come in, because despite all the decreases in taxes, the government still expects to raise about 11 more billion Ghana cedi than 2016. And all of this is hinged on the performance of the economy, that the private sector is going to respond to the incentives to expand business and expand jobs, and that therefore they can get some taxes from the revenues that are the expansion of the economy. If the economy fails to expand, for example, touchwood, they're expecting that we should grow at 6.5%. If something goes wrong, if we have a global crisis that fits into our economy, if American economy doesn't do well and China doesn't do well and Europe, Brexit has negative consequences, and we don't grow at 6.5%. If, say, we grow at 4%, 4.5%, it means that the revenue targets will not be met. If they are not met, then what happened to SHS? What happened to the free secondary school? What happened to the one district?
From the perspective of an analyst, and yes, it's good, do you think that, yes, they can go ahead and implement it, but do you see a funding challenge going forward in sustaining this program, and therefore will you wish that it is postponed?
No, we don't wish it's postponed. We are asking questions. Because we are not working in government, we don't really know what they have. But we think it's a good thing. But as to whether we are prepared and ready to start it this year, we don't have all the information in our and it's going to put a kind of a strain, to be honest, on the budget. But they understand, if you look at the allocations, the money seems to be there. It's as if they're expecting it. Because, for example, if you see how much they say they want to reduce corruption, how much they want to save from interest payment. Interest payment alone is about 13 billion Ghana cedi. And they're saying the free SHS is going to cost about, 400 million or so?
Or even more than that.
Yeah, so let's say even 1 billion. And you are paying 13 billion every year for interest, just for the loans that we have taken. So which means that if we cut down on our penchant for borrowing, which means that there's some 13 billion cedis in this economy that we have every year to give to creditors who have lent to us. If we save that, then it means we can do even free university education.
And that was your currency and commodities update, bringing an end to Business Live. My name is Daryl Carr. Thanks for watching and enjoy your weekend.